Welcome to the presentation on what to expect after you hit submit. Applying in higher education. The higher ed process is a bit different than what you will find in the private industry. Of most importance is understanding that it is a slower process that can take weeks, if not months, before a hiring is completed. Most positions are posted between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the position level. While the HR talent and recruiting team may review applications as they come in, most likely nothing firm will begin until the deadline passes. From that point, you can expect another 2 to 3 weeks at a minimum before the initial group of candidates have been selected for the first round of interviews. Things that might happen is that deadlines may be extended. This often is to gain a larger or perhaps a richer candidate pool that better aligns with the position needs. Sometimes a position may be canceled. This could be due to changes in the budget. It could be due to staffing changes or finding that the candidate pool doesn't have the experience required. This may cause the hiring manager to rethink the position itself and reword it before it's posted again. What is important to remember is that the hiring team know what they need to have in a candidate to be successful. This is where customizing your resume and cover letter to each position is critical. Search committees. In higher education, most positions have search committees comprised of 2 to 5 people that coordinate schedules to screen applications and participate in the interview process. If the position happens to be a student-facing one, upwards to an entire department may be involved in the process, where interviews may also include full-day to 1.5-day campus interviews that may include campus tours and different types of assessments or presentations. This is partially why the process takes longer than what you may find in the private industry. What does a typical hiring process look like in higher ed? As previously mentioned, the timeline in higher ed does take longer than in most industries. Most employers take advantage of technology and use online application systems. What this will require is that you create an account and complete an online application that will automatically be attached to each position that you apply to within the institution. Each posting will then describe the necessary documents for the application. Most often, this includes a resume and a cover letter. However, in some cases, you may be asked a series of introductory questions that pertain to the position itself. And there may also be a writing assignment, again depending on the nature of the position. These are all part of the screening process. Therefore, you'll want to take your time to ensure that your materials closely match the needs of each position that you apply to. Once you submit your materials, you can always log back into your account to see your status. For example, status could state application under or being reviewed. Most often, this is the default that is applied to every candidate that applies. Once the deadline passes and someone begins to screen or review applications, they may then begin to update what that status is. If your application does not meet the requirements of the position, it may state did not meet requirements. If you are someone that is being chosen for a phone interview or a one-way interview, or even an in-person interview, that status could state one of those 3. Most often, you'll be contacted via email to set up an interview or a one-way video. Keep in mind, candidate pools may be comprised of anywhere from 10 to several hundred applications, which all need to be individually reviewed for fit. Because of potential large candidate pools, and in higher ed, the volume of jobs that are being posted on a regular basis, many institutions may take advantage of an applicant tracking system, or ATS, which helps the recruiting team pre-screen applications according to keywords and minimum requirements of the posting. ATS is a computer software that's designed to scan resumes for certain keywords from the posting and weed out the ones that just don't match the job posting. When job postings garner a high applicant pool, ATS aids in streamlining the process. For example, some institutions may simply program the ATS to screen only for the education and the years of experience for that position, whereas others may be more extensive, pulling in keywords from the actual posting. It's important to note that if a job is posted as full remote, the potential is that candidate pools will be very large. So, again, being able to customize your documents to the job posting is paramount. What does the interview process look like in higher ed? There's often a first and a second interview at a minimum. Sometimes there's several more layers of interviews. It just depends on the position itself and what the hiring manager is looking for. So, the first interview, usually it's a phone call with an HR representative. It could also be a one-way video where you're sent a link to a video and 3 to 4 questions where you're videotaping yourself answering those questions. With the one-way video, you often have 3 days to complete the process. And you can videotape yourself as many times as you want answering each question until you're satisfied with the way you presented yourself for each question. Once you're done, you submit the link then back to the institution for review. In some cases, the hiring manager may use HR departments strictly to get their jobs posted and for consultation, but they may decide to take care of the first interview themselves. If that happens, often that does also speed up the process. Candidate pools, again, may be very small to very large. If a phone interview is the first stage, they may select upwards to 10 candidates for that phone interview. If a one-way video is the first stage, they may select upwards to 20 candidates to participate in the video interview. And then sometimes, depending on the position, that hiring manager may prefer to conduct all interviews themselves, even without a search committee. The second interview may be done by the department hiring manager or their team. Sometimes this may be done through a web process, such as Zoom or Teams, sometimes in person on the campus. From this point, a hiring decision may be made. However, if it's a student-facing position, another round of campus interviews may take place that involves more staff from that department. Campus interviews often include 3 to 6 candidates. The number of interviews will vary, as will the time in between interviews, which is the reason the process can take several weeks to several months. You may be wondering how you'll know if you're selected for an interview. This will depend on the institution's process and the technology they have in place. A good rule of thumb in higher ed is that once the position has closed and they're no longer accepting new applications, it may be another 2 to 3 weeks before they have finalized that initial group for the first step of the interview process. What you can do is log back into your account to check your status. But do keep in mind that not all hiring managers are able to maintain or update the status as the process moves along. You can always send HR a question on your status. Just remember that your response could be very general. Second option is that most first-line interviews will be the result of an email inviting you to that interview. In that email, it will be detailed what type of interview it is, what you need to do to prepare for it, and a listing of dates and times that you can select from. The third option is that when the search has been finalized and a candidate has been selected, the HR department may send a general email notifying candidates that the search has concluded and a hiring decision has been made. Or, if you have been interviewed, you may receive a personalized call or email directly from the hiring manager. What is useful to understand is that most often you won't receive a detailed reason that you were not offered the position or interviewed, as many factors go into the process. Know that the hiring team looked at experience and qualifications and the interview itself to find the candidate that best fits their needs. Again, remember the hiring team knows what knowledge, skills, and abilities are necessary to be successful in that position. And that's what they're looking for, not only in your cover letter and resume, but in what you say in your interviews at every level of interview. A reminder again is that you must customize your cover letter and resume to each position. Using the same resume and a generic cover letter most likely will not move you into the interview pool. Should you follow up on the status of the application and who do you contact? As mentioned earlier, you can certainly call or email HR to check on your status, but keep in mind you most likely will receive a general response. Again, logging back into your account may prove more helpful to see your status, but wait until at least the deadline passes before you do so. If you've interviewed, you can call or write those that interviewed you to check on your status. But again, you may not receive much in the form of details, but it does at least allow you to stay connected to the recruiter and or the hiring team. That allows them to know that you have continued interest in their position. Will there be any additional steps or assessments in the hiring process? The short answer is possibly. It's customary in higher ed that each position may take 3 to 5 rounds of interviews, starting with a larger pool for the first interview, screening to a smaller pool as the interview steps move along. You may need to give a presentation. Normally, this is already highlighted in the job posting, so when you are applying for the position, you know up front that if you are a candidate that has moved to the third, maybe the final round of interviews, that might be something that you will have to prepare for and to give. If that is the case, you're advised prior to that interview of the need for the presentation, what that presentation needs to involve, and the method in which you're going to provide that presentation. And in some cases, you may need to take an assessment of some type. Maybe it's an Excel or a Word test. Maybe it's a personality profile. But again, all of those requests will be very clear as you're moving along in the process. Final thoughts on gaining a job in higher ed. Higher ed continues to be a popular and stable industry to work in. Higher ed draws many, many people because of that. It's a great opportunity for someone right out of high school, right out of college, to start their career and then grow and learn within the institution. Many colleges and universities allow you to gain additional education, additional degrees, certification, extra training. It allows you to participate on projects and committees where you continue to grow your network, to grow your skill set, and allow you to build a career that can last upwards to 45, 50 years, whether it's in the same position or the same department or in many different departments and positions throughout that institution. But it's important to know that the process takes time. Once a deadline passes, expect weeks, if not a month or even more, before you hear anything about your status. It's important to customize your documents. It's not rewriting your resume and cover letter. You want a strong resume to start with, but you want to look at that job posting, each and every one, and customize. You want to tell your story of how your experience, your education closely align with or meet the needs of that position. You don't want to tell them so much that they don't need to interview you, but tell them enough that piques their interest that they want to learn more about you. If you are given an interview, send a note of appreciation. This is a nice little reconnection with those that interviewed you. It's a way for you to renew your interest in the position and to stay connected and top of mind. And then build your network. Not only building your network once you have the position in higher ed, but start building your network before you even enter into higher ed. Start learning about departments and people. Join organizations where you can connect with individuals and start thinking about your points of connection. Higher ed is a wonderful industry to work in, to remain in for your lifelong career, but it is a unique process and one that takes time. And you may not be hired in that first job. You may need to apply to many different jobs in the institution. Don't be afraid to look at different departments and different positions because your skill set may fit a lot of different roles in higher ed. Be creative, customize your documents, and be patient with the process. Thank you.